Blitz and me, Ross Volkmer. Get the latest updates, in-depth analysis, and a few hot takes on everything from the preps to the pros. Whether you're driving to work or just getting your day started, I've got you covered with all the local sports talk you crave. So don't miss out. Tune in every weekday morning starting at 7 Mountain, 8 Central Time on Goodland's Rocket 1025 to the Morning Blitz and join the conversation. Miss the show? No problem. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts.
Are pests making your home or business uncomfortable? Call Pest Away in Goodland, Kansas, serving all of Northwest Kansas. They provide top-notch pest control services to keep your space safe and pest-free. From ants to rodents, termites to spiders, our expert team is here to help with effective, safe, and affordable pest control solutions. Don't wait. Call Pest Away today at 785-728-7166 for fast, reliable service. Your home or business deserves the best protection.
Boy, howdy, are we in the big travel season. Have peace of mind that trained and certified crews from S&M Towing, Recovery and Repair stand by round the clock, ready to help you. The Tri-State area rely on these teams from Goodland, Burlington, Colby, and Oakley. When troubles arise, get roadside assistance, towing, and recovery anytime, any size. Call 785-899-5423, 899-5423.
Summer deals are heating up at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland. Right now, get up to $7,000 off a brand new 25 GMC Sierra 1500 Pro. Or choose 0% APR for 36 months plus no payments for 90 days on select 25 Sierra 1500s. Need more muscle? Drive off in a 25 Sierra 3500 with 3.9% APR for 48 months. Or grab $2,750 select market purchase allowance. GMC Professional Grade. These offers won't last. Swing by Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland today. Online at hurlchev.com.
If you're shopping for a banking institution, visit with Equity Bank of Hoxie, Grinnell, and Quinter, Kansas. The Equity Bank is heavily invested in local business and activities contributing in many ways back to their community. Their employees are involved with many organizations and area events. Plus, a lot of experience comes with that staff. You'll find valuable local assistance when you bank at the Equity Bank of Hoxie, Grinnell, Quinter, and other locations in Western Kansas. The Equity Bank, member FDIC.
Looking for insurance that actually puts you first? At the insurance agency in downtown Goodland, we're independent, which means we work for you. Whether it's auto, home, crop, or business, we shop top carriers to get you the best coverage at the best price. No pushy sales, just honest advice from people who live right here in your community. Give us a call today at 785-899-5011 or stop by 1020 Main in Goodland and let's get you covered. The insurance agency. Insurance the way it should be.
Looking for the perfect vehicle? Dan Brenner Ford has you covered with powerful Super Duty trucks, luxurious Ford Expeditions, and adventurous Ford Broncos all on the lot right now. Their knowledgeable service and parts professionals ensure you get the best care. Stop by Dan Brenner Ford today at 1520 Highway 27 in Goodland.
Dan Brenner Ford, the right car, right truck, right now.
Spring is in full swing at Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware. Get your lawn and garden looking their best with Ultimate Fertilizer and gear up with Eco blowers and mowers for the season ahead. Tackling a project, they've got a surplus of quality lumber ready for all your building needs. And when the work's done, fire up the fun with their wide selection of grills, smokers, and griddles from Traeger, Weber, and Blackstone. Stop by Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware in Goodland and Colby, your one-stop shop for spring projects, big and small.
You ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4!
It's time for the Morning Blitz with Ross Volkmer.
I am old and I am white, and I do not understand it in any way, shape, or form.
The High Plains only local sports talk show.
Not this again.
Yes, this again.
Broadcasting live on Rocket 102.5 and streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and X.
Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Covering it all from the preps.
It's an air ball in the Colby Eagles. Victorious in Hugoton.
To the pros.
The cheer is hit to left. It's deep. Going back, Gurriel. It's gone. He has done it again. His second home run tonight. And the Rockies have come back to take the lead.
The Blitz is presented by Hurl Chevrolet GMC, Hoover Lumber Hardware, and F&B Bank. Along with the insurance agency, the Farmer State Bank in Oakley, the Cowboy Corner Express, and Equity Bank of Hoxie, Quinter, and Grinnell.
Let's go to work.
Out to deep
right. Dalen Lyle drifting with it at the wall. He makes the catch. Dalen Lyle robbing extra bases and maybe more from Luis Arise.
And Pavin's bidding for one more. High fly ball. It's on its way. It is going, and it is gone. They go back to back. Who's got a craving for Pavin? His second home run tonight. Swing and a drive, socked out to left. Ward racing back, turning around, and that ball gets out of here. Home run, Trevor Story. This game is tied. Well, there goes number 32. Cal Raleigh annihilates another one. He has homered in 4 consecutive games for the first time in his big league career. An exclamation mark on a monster night for the Mariners.
The big dumper, as he has known, Cal Raleigh, leading the major leagues in home runs. That's amazing, at least the American League in home runs. Been an impressive showing for him. More on that possibly in the walk-off. Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Glad you're with us here on the Morning Blitz. It's June the 24th. They're going to be another pretty nice day today after once again a very hot weekend, a glorious evening last night here on the High Plains. 83, little cloudy today. Going to be cloudy in 65 to start the day. As we're just past 7 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone, 7:09 to be exact. But should be another pretty nice day for late June. But glad you're with us here on the Morning Blitz. We have a full show ahead today. We're going to be discussing, once again, the big removal of scholarships from the NCAA. That's coming up with the House versus NCAA. We're going to be discussing that coming up in our second segment. And we will dive into the Royals and the Rockies as they both return to action tonight. And an interesting stat regarding both of those teams here over the last 20 games or so. We'll get to that coming up here in segment 3. But because of just the way things work out sometimes, we have to be very flexible on this show. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to get one of our favorite guests on. And so we are pleased to welcome into the program our good friend on the Hoover Lumber Ace Hardware Hotline, Cole Carmody of GoPowerCat.com is kind enough to join us and join us here this morning. Good morning, Cole. How are we doing today?
Well, I'm doing great, Ross. Really appreciate you squeezing me in. I know that you guys obviously got a lot to talk about. The Royals are back in action. The Rockies, they've been playing the best baseball they've been playing all year, so that should count for something. So the fact that we can squeeze in a little K-State talk and you can accommodate my schedule on your show should just tell you how amazing of a guy you are.
Oh, that's really kind of you, Cole. You're really laying it on thick today, and I appreciate that. Cole Carmody, of course, from GoPowerCat.com joining us once again on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the Royals? I'm sure you are I'm guessing you're a Royals fan. I would be surprised if you're not.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Royals fan. I'm actually going to the game tonight and tomorrow, so that should just tell you I haven't been to a game in like a month. So the baseball withdrawal is kicking in. I think they're doing about where they need to be right now. That's the one thing about baseball that I think people fail to understand sometimes is if you can play 500 ball and then go on 1 or 2 runs when you need it the most, then your team's going to be in playoff position. And like we saw last year, all it takes is, 1 run. That's all the Royals needed. And they played 500 ball the rest of the way, and they ultimately won a playoff series. I think they need another bat. That's the one thing that they really need, but they're starting to figure things out. Obviously they went 0-6 on the homestand, 4-2 road trip. Any way you slice it, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. I find it interesting. I'm a big Diamondbacks fan. That's my team, and so they're kind of in the same boat. It's kind of like 500 ball to this point in time, and that's been fine. But I tell you, every time I read stuff, it's like, well, what are the Diamondbacks going to do at the trade deadline? They're going to be sellers or something like that. And I don't really want to be sellers, but that just may be what happens. I guess we'll find out and see. But Cole Carmody once again is our good guest. How's your baseball season going so far this summer? Because you're the skipper for a summer league team, aren't you?
Oh yeah. It's going great. Nonstop action every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Dealing with 15-year-olds, and sometimes they have to deal with 16 and 17-year-olds if other coaches aren't there. But it's fun. People sometimes ask me, what do you do? You do so many things. I'm like, yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, I cover Kansas State. And yes, I'm a coach. Deal with it. Dude, I love it. It's an amazing thing to do. That's part of the reason why we have to do this in the morning. It's because as soon as I get off with you, I got to go help kids at weights. So there we are.
Yeah, I understand. It's a very busy time for a lot of people. So once again, we appreciate you squeezing us in. I want to dive in. A really, really big reason I wanted to have you on was to talk recruiting. A lot of people may not know because it feels like every year the calendar changes, at least here over the last handful of years. But Joey just got done kind of wrapping up a massive recruiting portion of the year for college football. Now we are currently in what is known as a dead period and that's for the next, I think, 2.5 months, not until anything until September. You can't really host anybody or have anybody on campus. So but before that, though, it was a massive recruiting period. How do you feel like Kansas State did football-wise recruiting during that very busy time of the month of June?
Well, they came into the month of June with, I want to say, maybe like 2 or 3 commits. And when you compare that to Kansas, KU, I want to say, probably had 10 or 11, maybe even 12. And so there was a lot of fans who were like kind of sitting back questioning, going, okay, is this really going to work? And, K-State scheduled probably close to 30 official visits over the summer, and they capitalized on it. I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers off the top of my head. I want to say that their hit rate, as far as kids who they had on campus who they ultimately got to commit, probably close to 40%. And anytime you're living in that 25 to 30%, you're doing things right. But for K-State to hit on that number, really what that tells me is that, they're not so concerned with looking at the board and saying, who is the highest rated uncommitted prospect? We're going after this guy. What they're worried about, they're looking at their board and saying, what guy is going to fit our system? We want to get that guy on campus, and we want to secure a commitment. And that's really what they did. There was a lot of guys who, I'd say a handful of guys who they took who were unrated, who ultimately ended up with fairly good ratings according to all the recruiting services, but they got them to commit before them because they saw something and they felt comfortable in it. They got them on campus, and when you know it, they're ultimately gonna, after their senior season, come on over to Manhattan.
Well, I know that I just noticed one day or a couple days in a row, it was just a flurry of guys jumping in the boat saying, yes, we're going to be here. Why do you think K-State has been able to, like you said, they kind of get in early on guys? Why do you think they've been able to, because just because you get in early on someone does not mean you're going to be able to keep them. Why do you think they've been able to keep these certain guys in their class? Because sometimes you get in early, these guys blow up, and then they go bigger places.
Right. I think that everything Chris Kleiman preaches is just so genuine. I think that's really what it is. I mean, they have grown, that program has grown to earn a level of national respect to where they are able to compete with, some of the bigger name brands. Obviously, you in that part of the world know Lincoln's story very well. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with Oregon last year and were able to keep him. That's just one example. I mean, even the Dylan Edwards saga, you think back to the summer of 2022, and Dylan Edwards commits to K-State, ultimately commits to Notre Dame before then flipping to Colorado, but he still kept that K-State in the back of his mind. And so when he entered the transfer portal, there was no hesitation. That was the place he needed to be. It's all about the relationships that not just the recruiting staff, but all of the coaches keep in general. And so I'm really not surprised when K-State gets their commits in the summer and then they end up signing in the fall, or even, that if they're able to flip some kids right before signing day, because those relationships that they develop with the kids, there are no grudges. And in the age of the transfer portal, you cannot have grudges, because 365 days after a kid signs somewhere else, he could be in the transfer portal and you could be in play for that kid if that's the kid that you really want.
Cole Carmody, once again, is our guest from GoPowerCat.com. We're talking Kansas State football recruiting. Once again, the month of June, a very busy month now in the world of recruiting, and before a massive dead period now all the way until September. When you look at this class, what stands out to you about it, and what are a couple of guys you're very intrigued about?
Well, right now, they really don't have a headliner. I think that's kind of the first thing that sticks out to me. They've got a really solid class, but it would look even more solid if they had a headliner. And they had an opportunity to snag a headliner of sorts over the weekend. Severian Martin, he's a cornerback out of Texas, came down to K-State and Texas Tech. All indications point to him being a 4-star kid by the end of the cycle. He ultimately went to Texas Tech. So that's the first thing that stands out, Ross, is I really don't see like a headliner for this group. They don't have that one guy where fans are going to look at it and say, oh, that is the guy. We think about the Avery Johnson class. Well, Avery Johnson was the guy last year. It's the Lincoln Cure class. Lincoln is the guy. Well, they don't really have that right now. that's not to say that this class can't be successful, because I still think there's a headliner out there who Casey has a great opportunity to get. But the few guys who stand out to me, the one is a quarterback, and it's Miles Teodecki. And this is a kid from Austin, Texas. And if folks don't know, he goes to Vandergrift High School. It's 6A Division II, so it's the biggest division in Texas. But because there's so many big schools, they have to break it up in 2 divisions. So he's in that 2nd division. Well, he won the state championship at Vandergrift, which historically has not been a very good football program. And I think a lot of folks could look at that and say, oh, he probably had a lot of talent around him. Well, he actually really didn't. He only had one other Division I football player on the offensive side of the ball, which for a 6A school in Texas, you just don't see that very often. And a lot of schools passed on him because A, he's left-handed, and B, he's not the most mobile quarterback. But you look at his stats, you watch him play, and you realize that the guy's a gamer and the guy's a winner. And so that's the one guy who I'm really excited about. And I think if he has a really good senior year, K-State's going to have to fight tooth and nail to keep, because it is just very difficult for Texas kids to leave the state for whatever reason. It's just that culture of football. So if they can hold on to him, that's probably the one guy that I'm looking at. And then obviously the next guy I'm looking at is Lawson McGraw. And Lawson McGraw is a legacy at Kansas State. His dad is John McGraw, the Riley County legend, played for the Chiefs, played for the Jets, played for the Lions, NFL guy for 10 plus years. He is a Blue Valley West kid right now. They recruited him as an athlete. Not totally sure if he's going to play offense, if he's going to play defense, but that's a kid who I'm really excited about. I've seen him play. He's a great kid. And I would say those 2 guys would be the 2 guys that fans need to make sure that they keep an eye on this fall.
Miles Teodecki, this is no offense, he looks kind of nerdy, you know?
He
He's got a nerdy look to him, but apparently he can play some ball.
That's right.
Apparently he can play some ball. Cole Carmody is our guest from GoPowerCat.com as we're talking Kansas State football commits. They have 16 in this class, and that's going to be kind of start. It used to be you used to see maybe 25 because that was your scholarship limit. Each year 25, maybe even 30 in some cases a few years ago. This is probably going to be more than that 10 to 16, 10 to 15 range of high school commits because you want to save 10 spots for the portal. Correct, every single year.
Yeah, it is. And I've anticipated this class being anywhere from 15 to 22. I think 23 is the most. But, you really start to look at it, and I don't even know if they get to that 20 number. There's a handful of, guys out there who they still really, really want and who are pushing for. And you probably have to take into account 1 or 2 guys every fall that maybe pop up on the radar who they try and flip at the, at signing day. There's a coach who's fired. This kid's been committed to this place for a long time. But the coach gets fired, and so now the kid's kind of, hung out to dry. That happened a few times. That's happened a few times under Chris Kleiman. But you're right. You don't want to overcommit to your high school recruiting class because then it leaves you less spots with the portal. And I heard you talking about, the NCAA versus House settlement, that there's so much that goes into roster building right now. And I do not envy Chris Kleiman, but lucky for Chris Kleiman, he's got a GM, and the GM's name's Clint Brown, who's been with him for a few years now. And that's literally what his job is. And for folks who don't know, Chris Kleiman helps manage the roster, but he is not the guy who's going out and saying, okay, we're going to cut this kid. We're going to tell this kid to enter the portal. We're going to try and keep this kid. This kid's got 2 years, so we need to make sure that we save him a spot for 2 years. No, that's not what happens. That is all the job of the GM. Chris Kleiman simply coaches the players who are on the field, tells the GM, here's what I want in the offseason, and let's make it happen. So, yeah, you're right. The recruiting classes are going to be smaller this year, which in a way can make it even that more difficult.
How much of an issue was, and I think I heard Kleiman make a comment on this, but, getting down to the 105, was that an issue for Kansas State at all this year?
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, this is the thing about the 105 that really, really put K-State in a tough spot, because this is a program that's built on walk-ons. I mean, that story has been well told. But this is a program that's built on walk-ons. And so when you have to tell a kid, hey, we don't have a spot for you, that's really difficult, because they have gone out and they've told these kids, hey, you can be a walk-on here and you can contribute. If it's special teams, if it's going to be offense, if it's defense, if you work your butt off, you can get to that point. The stories of the walk-ons are endless. And so it was very difficult for Chris Kleiman and his staff to tell a bunch of kids, hey, sorry, we don't have a spot for you. And so what they ultimately did, the reason why they did that was so these kids could enter the transfer portal and find places at other institutions. Well, with the new ruling that says these walk-ons can be grandfathered in, puts K-State in a tough spot because they had just told kids, hey, you're cut. We want you to go play somewhere. Well, now these kids are at different institutions. Even if they wanted to stay at K-State, that's not possible. But they still did the right thing, in my opinion, because had they not done that and they rolled the dice, if the NCAA would have came back and said, okay, there's no grandfathered in, you just have to have the 105. Well, here we are in June, and K-State's cutting kids and telling them to enter their transfer portal, and there's no other schools that are looking to add to the roster because their rosters are already complete. And so it really put K-State in a bind, and they thought they did what was best for the kids. I maintain that they probably did do what's best for the kids, even if that meant that those kids had to move on.
Yeah, it's been a real tough situation for a lot of schools. I think particularly in the Midwest that are built upon the walk-ons and things of that sort. Your Kansas States, your Nebraskas, and things of that. It's been hard on those programs to try and hey, we want you to be here because we do believe in developing players and I think that's another talk about player development, Cole. That's another thing that you don't see these humongous recruiting classes anymore because you want to get guys that you believe could actually be here for 2 to 3 years and not just be one and dones. And with that, my question is, I remember growing up, not even that long ago, I really did enjoy the recruiting aspect of this. Right now, as I've gotten older, not because I'm just getting older, but I think it's because the way it's changed. I don't really care about recruiting that much more because there is no guarantee that Lawson McGraw, an example, or Keegan Collins or anybody like that is going to be playing at Kansas State when they actually develop into the football players. So being a guy who covers it every day, how do you handle that?
I think that it really depends on the type of kid. And I think that it's not just people who cover the recruiting, but it's the coaches as well. They have to take a look and they have to talk to the kids and find out, is this the kid who's going to buy into the plan that we're giving them? Like if they're not, okay, then we're not going to recruit you. But because the spots are so limited, because they want to minimize, their transfer portal entries, which K-State's done a really good job about that. The only guy who entered the transfer portal in the offseason who played significant snaps for K-State is Trey Spivey. And there was a whole different, a whole lot of reasons for that had nothing to do with on-field performance. He's the only guy. And so K-State's really proud of the fact that they get guys on campus and they keep them there. The only guys who enter the transfer portal are guys who realize, oh, crap, I have not developed. I have not gotten better. I need to go somewhere else. And so for K-State, they have to decide, is this kid going to be a guy who's going to stay around, who's going to trust the process, who's going to develop? If the answer to that question is no, K-State's not wasting their time in recruiting them. And it's a whole long feeling out process that takes months and months to figure out. And I don't envy the coaches, but as someone who is covering it, who is boots on the ground and I'm around it, I even kind of get that vibe. If a kid is very, well, I don't know, I want to go check out this place. No. Okay. Well, then you're probably not going to end up at K-State because I know how K-State operates and they want guys who are all the way bought in.
Well, that's why I see from perspective, I could see a lot of programs saying, well, we're going to go after offensive linemen in our recruiting classes, our defensive linemen, skill. I don't know. I feel like skill position recruiting is going to be one of those things that, especially at the high school level, it's going to go kind of wayside, I think, for a little bit because those guys seem to be a little bit more free movers. And you could get those guys out of the portal. Once again, we've seen Dylan Edwards and others. You see the whole wide receiver core this year for Kansas State is pretty much portal acquisition. So I think your skill position guys, but I think if you can, you would like to find a way to be able to develop your big guys and keep them in-house as long as you possibly can, because going out and purchasing those guys in the portal is going to cost a lot of coin.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what? The way I look at it, you can always teach someone how to run a slant route. You can always teach someone how to run between the tackles, but it's very, very difficult to teach your offensive lineman the scheme that you want. It's very difficult to teach your defensive lineman how to become 6'5", 300 pounds. Like that's just not something that happens. And so K-State is built from within. They are always solid in the trenches. And if they have to go, spend some money in the transfer portal on receiver, like you just mentioned, they will do that. They've only signed one wide receiver, so I kind of get the feeling that's what their plan is this offseason. We'll see. But you're right. I think they have, if I'm giving advice, which I don't think anybody wants me to give them advice, but if I'm giving advice to a college football program, it is build your program from the trenches outward.
I think that's the way to go. There is no doubt about it. Cole Carmody, continue to be our guest on GoPowerCat.com. A couple more for you. I've been asking everybody this that's associated with college athletics, whether they are, a part of a university or just like you, part of an entity that covers it. Well, how do you feel like Kansas State is positioned with the new ruling of the House versus the NCAA of the $20.5 million that's going to be going to all student athletes, not just football? How do you feel like Kansas State is positioned for the future, at least for the next year of college athletics before it changes again?
Yeah, I think they're in a good spot. They can definitely get to that $20.5 million. I think a lot of people don't realize that there are some institutions who are not going to be able to get to that $20.5 million. This isn't the NCAA saying, here's $20.5 million.
Not just some, but some even in the Big 12 conference. I mean, in big conferences, my point.
Right. K-State is going to be able to do that. By all indications, there is enough money within the athletics department budget to where that will work. And I also think they're going to have a little bit of excess too. We'll see how some of those NIL deals work, but I know the Long MacArthur stuff that, they've gotten with, the car dealerships through the NIL, like those are legitimate NIL opportunities that will pass the clearinghouse, that will kind of give an influx of cash to some athletes. There is a lot of opportunities for legitimate NIL in Manhattan, and people don't necessarily realize that, but because Kansas is such a big agricultural state, there are so many opportunities for athletes, especially in-state athletes, to really help out businesses across the state. And that's what I think some people might not always understand, is that a guy like Avery Johnson is going to be more valuable at an institution like Kansas State than, say, a Texas A&M. Avery Johnson on a car commercial in Manhattan is going to sell more cars than Avery Johnson on a car commercial in College Station. Avery Johnson on a car commercial in Wichita is definitely going to sell more cars than an Avery Johnson commercial in Austin, right? That's just how it is. He's recognizable. People know who he is. And so if he's driving around town in a purple Lamborghini, it might make me more likely to buy a purple Lamborghini. Maybe, probably not. Sure. But the point is, K-State is really good. They have a really healthy NIL. And so it's not always going to be easy, but at least for this foreseeable future, I think that the donors are really going to step up, and Gene Taylor's done an outstanding job to make sure that K-State is well positioned as we head into this next wave.
I mean, that's the thing. Like you want to have that $20.5 million to spread across, and most of it, people think it's going to be 15 million is going to go to football.
Right.
Where do you think Kansas State invests the other portions of that? I'm guessing men's basketball is for sure the other spot, but there's a $5 to $7 million give or take range there. Where do you think they invest? Because that's the best part, to an extent, about this, is if you want to invest it more in baseball, you could do that. If you want to invest it more in women's basketball, you could do that. How do you think Gene Taylor goes about doing that?
I think men's basketball is probably the lone answer here. As much as I want to say women's basketball or baseball, I just, I think this is a really important year for Jerome Tang. If he goes out and has a really successful season, no questions about it, they are the number 2 sport at Kansas State. I think they probably still are, but it really, I think, is going to be determined on the fan base too. Like, there's a lot of folks who remember K-State being a national power. That's why K-State had such a high NIL for basketball, is that those large donors remember K-State being so good in basketball. They remember before 1988 when K-State was the brand in Kansas. And so they want them to return to that. I think that that's probably still the case, but with that being said, I think baseball is making a real argument to kind of be that number 3, which is crazy considering the level of success that the women's basketball team has had. But you look at postseason success the last 2 years, and you could make an argument that K-State baseball overachieved this year. K-State women's basketball underachieved this year. K-State completely overachieved last year, and the women completely underachieved last year. So you could make an argument that Pete Hughes' squad is, going to be banging on the table for some money. Even if they don't get the 3rd most money, they're probably going to get the fourth most money. And I think that the third and fourth most money is going to be an incredibly small difference.
Yeah, I that's to me, and I know you got to get going here just a little bit, but that's the thing to me that stands out the most about this whole ordeal is that, yeah, we know football programs are going to invest in football. Obviously, your Kansas States are going to do that. And men's basketball is probably number 2 for a majority of universities across the country. But where does the other slices of pie go to? I'm fascinated. Do you have to win in order to get that extra slice of pie? Or is it more like, what, we want to be good in this sport? The Nigeri Kennedy deal for Texas.
Right.
We want to be good in softball. We're going to invest in this sport. I am super, super fascinated to see how that impacts. And I'm also fascinated to see how the clearinghouse works, because does it work? Because if it does, you know for a fact that's going to cut down on some massive deals that have been happening that, like, giving freshmen out of high school multiple millions of dollars is ridiculous. And I don't understand it one bit. I mean, when you started Go Power Cat, I'm sure you were not making more than Fitz.
That would be correct. That would be correct.
And still not making more than Fitz.
Correct.
So anyway, Cole, we'll let you go. We'll let you go hit that bench press up. Show those kids how much you can bench.
That's right.
By the way, how much is that?
I'm not going to answer that question.
We'll leave it at that. Cole, thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate the time. Have yourself a great rest of the day. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Ross. You too.
Once again, great stuff there from Cole Carmody joining us here on the Morning Blitz. Great stuff there from him as we discuss K-State and where they are with, not only, of course, recruiting on the football front. Once again, football recruiting is done now until September. That was one thing I wanted to kind of get across there. It's a new dead period now. It used to maybe be just, a month or, 3 weeks. Now it's a whole 2.5, almost 2 to 2.5 months of dead period, which I think is great. I think it is very good for the coaches, your Chris Klymans and your Lance Leipold's. They get a chance to get away, go spend time with their family, go their vacation spots, and get away for a month or so before they have to come back and get ready for the season. In late, it'll be, they don't get the whole time off, obviously. They got to come back in late July for media days. And then they've got, in case of Kansas State, they got to get camp going in late July because they're playing in mid-August, probably mid-July, because they're playing in mid-August in the Aer Lingus Classic over in Ireland. So it's not like get the whole lot of time off, but they don't have to worry about a whole lot of stuff. And I think that's really, really good. So, Big fan of this rule change in a time when I don't really like a lot of the rule changes that are happening in college athletics. Okay, so it is 7:35 Mountain Time, 8:35 Central. Once again, thanks again for tuning and listening to the Morning Blitz. We really appreciate doing so. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, hit us up on the FNB Bank text line anytime at 785-899-2222. Or, of course, on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream on X, Facebook, or YouTube. We'll see your comments there as well as you shoot them on in. We'll take a break, come back. We will dive more into the news yesterday surrounding, once again, the removal of scholarship limits in college athletics. That is next here on the Morning Blitz.
Convenience just got an upgrade. Farmers State Bank of Oakley is excited to announce the opening of our brand new ATM along Highway 40, right next to Sonic Drive-In. Whether you're grabbing a snack or on the go, you can quickly access your cash without the detour. It's banking made easy, right where you need it. Farmers State Bank of Oakley, member FDIC.
It's time for a check of the markets with the Anderson Trade Group on the Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio Network.
Good morning, this is Kate Thompson with the Anderson Trade Group. Today is Tuesday, June 24th. On the overnight last night, July corn lower 2 cents at 4.17 1/4. September down 2 at 4.15 1/2. December down 2 at 4.31 3/4. March corn down 1 3/4 at 4.47 1/2. July soybeans down 3 1/2 on the overnight at 10.55 1/4. August down 4 at 10.58. September down 6 1/4 at 10.34. November down 5 3/4 at 10.41. Chicago beef July contract lower 10 cents at 5.42 1/4. September down 10 at 5.59 1/2. December down 9 3/4 at 5.83. March down 10 cents at 6.02 1/2. Kansas City Week, July contract lower 9 1/4 at 540 3/4. September down 9 1/4 at 555 3/4. December down 9 3/4 at 579. March hard wheat down 9 3/4 at 598 1/2. On the stock market this morning, the Dow up $268 at 43,169. The S&P up 41 at 6,118. The Nasdaq up $210 at 22,284. Gold lower $65 an ounce at 3,329. Crude oil down $2.62 a barrel at $65.91. If you have any questions about marketing grain or would like to talk about risk management options, give our Colorado office a call. John Hankey or John Stiles at 970-744-4484, or in our Kansas City office, myself, Tom Pluto, Jared Law, or Tyler Ghosh at 913-748-3000.
The Anderson Trade Group, proud market partners with Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio. Find out more at andersongrain.com. The risk of loss through trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance, whether actual or indicated, is not indicative of future results. The Anderson Trade Group has no guarantee that the advice given will result in profitable trades.
Bugs can wreak havoc on post-harvest stored grains. A strong control plan helps stop insects before they start. At Central Life Sciences, we believe in making every kernel count towards your profits. That's why Gravista Insecticide, a grain protectant, features a synergized insecticide with an insect growth regulator. Now available in a convenient quart size, designed for empty bin treatments to help you store smart and make every kernel count. Contact Maya Butler at bugfreegrains.com to learn more.
Imagine having more days of perfect weather, a combine that's more powerful, or even more soybean bushels per acre at harvest. With Revitec fungicide, you don't have to imagine that last one, because it's proven to deliver up to 9.5 more soybean bushels per acre than the competition. With results like that, it's easy to see why Revitec fungicide is the #1 recommended fungicide by soybean farmers. Visit Revitec.com and talk to your BASF retailer today. Always read and follow label directions.
This is Danny Zwaggart with the Schooler Company. Since your crops are the most essential part of the global supply chain, let us help be your strategic marketing partner. Whether it's an extra truck at harvest, marketing your on-farm storage, or asking us about our unique risk management solutions, we have the tools to help you navigate these ever-changing markets. We are partners in helping your operation run as smooth as possible, and our local merchandisers are deeply knowledgeable about supply and demand and the current market movements. So give Schooler a call today at 785-890-3639.
It's not just sports, it's your morning game plan.
I don't even believe you have a plan. I have part of a plan. That is not a plan.
This is the Morning Blitz.
20 minutes till the top of the hour on a Tuesday. Thanks again to Cole Carmody for spending some time with us today before he had to get out the door and get on his way to weights for his high schoolers, which is great. Understand that all too well out here in the small town, that is for sure. Big news. I mean, this is not like, I don't want to say this is breaking news because it's not. This is stuff that we have been talking about for weeks and maybe months on end. And if you follow college athletics, this has been a humongous storyline. But the NCAA, starting next week, a week from today, July the 1st, the NCAA is going to remove its scholarship limits. This is all part of the House versus NCAA settlement that recently got approved a couple Fridays ago. So that's all been approved. And so now schools that opt into this House settlement will be allowed to award scholarships to as many players as they wish, as long as they are within the roster size caps that are outlined in the particular segment. For once again, an example would be football. The cap is 105. So it used to be there were 85 scholars. You were allowed 85 scholarships in football, and then you could have as many other players as you wanted, but they'd have to be walk-on guys. That's how it used to be. For those who don't follow along, it used to be 85 guys were on scholarship, and then the rest were all walk-ons. They paid their own way, and places like Kansas State, like Nebraska, they were great at that. They were great at going out and getting their 85, and then they would bring in a bunch of kids that wanted to be a part of the program in some fashion or form. And sometimes you would get amazing diamonds in the rough. You would get these great players that would come and develop over the course of 3 to 4 years. And then when they were juniors and seniors, they became really good players that helped your team. That's just no longer going to be the thing. Now you're going to get rid of walk-on. I mean, I think now you can have 10 walk-ons, I think is as many as you can have. But once again, that means you're only giving scholarships to, 95 guys. So if you have the money, which I believe Kansas State is in this boat, I think Nebraska's boat. I don't know as much about Kansas. We'll have to have Henry Greenstein on and have his thoughts on this from the KU perspective. But, I don't know if they have that kind of money, but if you're going to, let's say you're going to do the 105 play, you're going to give all 105 players, a full ride scholarship, but that's all you're going to have. You have 105 players. Well, and then of course the grandfathered in part that we talk about from time to time, you're like, what's that mean? Well, the grandfathered in part means that if you did have more, let's say you had 120 kids on your roster, you can say, well, and you can keep those guys in your roster. They won't count towards the 105. And then, as they graduate, you just can't fill those spots. So they get grandfathered in. And that was actually one of the big reasons why it took so long for this House First Legislature to get approved. They thought it'd be done June 1. It was more like the middle of June when it finally got done. And that's because Claudia Wilkins, who signed it, who's the judge in charge that signed the approval on this, said, we got to find a way to make sure that these kids just don't get completely cut away. But, schools like Kansas State, they just bit the bullet. Like Cole said, they just bit the bullet and said, well, you know what? We're just going to cut you. I'm sorry. We love you. We appreciate you. We don't want to do this, but we have to let you go. We have to get down to 105. We don't think you're going to make our 105. You're free to go in the portal and go maybe make it at, South Dakota or South Dakota State or maybe Northwest Missouri State or Washburn or something along those lines. That's what the plan was. And, but there are some schools, I know like Nebraska, for example, still has about 100, 125 guys. I think it's 120. But the 15 guys that they are over the limit, those guys are just grandfathered in at this point in time. They aren't going to get full scholarships. They're going to pay their own way like they have been. But that's just the way it's going to be. And it's a sad deal. It is a sad deal because, like we mentioned with Cole, there were great guys that came through programs that made that up. But it's not only happening in football, it's happening across all sports. I think basketball, is going to 15, maybe it's more, 15 to 18 scholarships. I know baseball is cutting down. Like baseball was always an interesting one. Baseball, the amount of scholarships allowed for college baseball was 11.7. 11.7 scholarships is how many you could have for college baseball. That's what it was for a long time. Heck, there was podcasts, stories written about the 11.7. But now I think you can give a full, I think it's either 26 or 34. One of those two numbers in my mind stands out is what you can have for baseball. And so you are seeing but that's the cap. Like you can do a full 34 scholarships, but you can't have more than 34 guys. And there's a lot of programs out there in baseball that had numbers in the 40s, mid 40s. So they're having to cut, 10 to 15 guys. And because of that, the numbers I've heard in the college baseball portal is like 6,000. 6,000 athletes are in the portal for college baseball. Now that's not a good look. It's a bad look, but but if you want to try to paint it in a brighter light, you could say, well, shoot, there's plenty of players out there that, other programs should be able to pick those guys up and we should see some parity in baseball. True. But the guys that more than likely the other programs are getting rid of are guys that are not going to be impact players for them. Who knows? Maybe they will be for your program. It's hard to tell. But this whole scholarship deal, it's certainly going to do that. And another big point to keep in mind with this changes starting July 1 and the scholarship limits is that it's expected to open the door and double the number of scholarships available to women, and opens the door to revenue sharing with athletes a little bit more as well. Once again, the $20.5 million annually. So trying to get more money into women's sports, which is true, but at the same time, you're going, and it's going to be good for some women's sports. It's going to more than likely be bad for others. We've talked about this many times on the program. Like, I think Yes, I think softball will have an influx. I think not baseball. I think women's basketball could have a little bit of an influx depending on where you're at. You're going to see some of that influx come in of money, which is great. But you're taking that $20.5 billion that you have to give to athletes, like that's the thing. Like before this all got signed, colleges didn't have to pay athletes. They were paid through their collectives. They were paid through NIL. That's how they were paid to do that. Now, if you're going to compete, more than likely, your college is going to have to spend that $20.5 million that you were putting towards other things. Maybe that was funding other programs, funding stuff like that. That's all got to go to the wayside. And so I think you're going to see like your swimming, your diving, you go down on the bottom end of your, and because of Title IX, there are more women's programs than men's programs. You're probably going to start to see some of these programs get axed. Possibly. And that's why Title IX is in a big stink, and totally understandably so why they are. But yeah, like I said, I think this whole settlement deal has a few bright spots to it, but once again, it's not a perfect deal. And I think that's just the way it was going to have to be. But once again, starting July 1, no more scholarship limits because of the House versus NCAA settlement. No more scholarship limits. Used to be 85 in football. Now you can have 105 guys on scholarship, but that's how many guys, in baseball, it used to be, you had 11 and a half scholarships to spread across your entire roster. You could cut those into quarters or whatever you wanted to and give some money. Now you can give full rides, and for all 26 or 34, I forget the number. I think it's 34, but I could be wrong on that. You can have everyone can be on a full scholarship for 34 guys, but that's it. That's all you can have. And so, yeah, like I said, I am intrigued to see down the road, does this have any impact? Do we see, particularly players that were playing at like LSU, like I'm talking baseball, for example, and you could do this in football, but playing at really, really good places, and I'm going to stick to the baseball conversation here. Let's say you're at LSU, but you're player number 40. You're probably still pretty good if you're playing at LSU, more than likely. You're probably a pretty good player. If you're playing college baseball at Tennessee and you're player number 40, you're probably still a pretty good player. Where do those guys go, make an impact for another team? And is it enough to make a team a little bit better? I don't know. We're going to find out. Or the rich could just get richer, and I could see that happening as well. Like I said, every single year, it just seems like everything is changing in college athletics. Every single year, there's a massive change, whether it's NIL, whether it's portal, whether it's House versus NCAA. Every year for the last 5 or so years, something big has come in and something has changed. And I'm intrigued to see how it impacts, if it does anything, going forward here over the coming years. We'll find out. All right, 10 minutes till the top of the hour. FB Bank text line open at 785-899-2222. We will come back and wrap up the show with some thoughts, Royals and Rockies, next here on the Morning Blitz.
Hey, NWKS radio listeners, we want to invite you to our studios located in Goodland, Kansas. You saw us doing a remodel on the building. Now it's time to show it off. We're hosting an open house on Thursday, June 26th from 4 to 6. Tour the studios, meet our NWKS radio staff, eat some scrumptious food, celebrate the opening with us with a ribbon cutting, and of course, listen to some great tunes. We can't wait to see all of our favorite people at our new studios, 1803 Cherry in Goodland, on Thursday, June 26th.
Summer deals are heating up at Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland. Right now, get up to $7,000 off a brand new 25 GMC Sierra 1500 Pro, or choose 0% APR for 36 months plus no payments for 90 days on select 25 Sierra 1500s. Need more muscle? Drive off in a 25 Sierra 3500 with 3.9% APR for 48 months, or grab $2,750 select market purchase allowance. GMC, professional grade. These offers won't last. Swing by Hurl Chevrolet GMC in Goodland today, online at hurlchev.com.
At FNB Bank, we know family comes first. Whether you're opening a savings account for your kids, buying a new home, or planning for the future, we're here to help every step of the way. With personalized service and flexible options, we make banking easy for your growing family. FNB Bank, serving families, strengthening communities. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Let's face it, Many of us plan our vacations down to the hour, the activities, the food we want, and the people we'll see. So why not save our family the grief and stress when we leave this world? Why not inquire about rearranging our funeral and celebration of life? Call Coons Russell Funeral Home in Goodland for their assistance. They've made it so much easier on families in times of stress. Call or visit CoonsRussellFuneralHome.com.
Looking for insurance that actually puts you first? At the insurance agency in downtown Goodland, we're independent, which means we work for you. Whether it's auto, home, crop, or business, we shop top carriers to get you the best coverage at the best price. No pushy sales, just honest advice from people who live right here in your community. Give us a call today at 785-899-5011 or stop by 1020 Main in Goodland and let's get you covered. The Insurance Agency. Insurance the way it should be.
All the sports you love, all in one place.
Ooh, this will come in handy.
This is the Morning Blitz.
Once again, appreciate you joining us here on this Tuesday. And remember, if you're joining us on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream on X, Facebook, or YouTube, or if you are tuning in, of course, the old-fashioned way to an extent on the on Goodland's Rocket 102.5 or endofakisradio.net. Appreciate you doing so. You heard it early on in the commercial break there. Yes, folks, this Thursday, that would be the 26th, we are going to be having an open house from 4 to 6. So if you've ever driven by here on Cherry and thought, I wonder what that place looks like on inside since there was the old Pizza Hut. Does it still smell like pizza? Do they still have the old ringing doorbell? All those questions could be answered if you want to stop by on Thursday. So pop by and see us. We'll be here 4 to 6. We're going to have great food, some tunes as well. Come check out the new studios. You can see, you can always see behind, if you watch on the Hurl Chevrolet GMC video stream, you see what's behind me here in the studio, but you can see what's in front of me if you want to do that as well. So I invite you to stop by. Once again, that is Thursday, 4 to 6. That is our open house here at the new building on Cherry Street here in Goodland. So would love to come out, love to meet you, all that stuff. So please make sure you come on by on Thursday evening. Okay, after a couple days off, both the Royals and Rockies are back on the diamond tonight. Both teams are at home. The Royals are at home playing host to the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Rockies are at home with a stiffer task. They're taking on the LA Dodgers tonight. Herman Marquez on the bump for Colorado with a 6:40 Mountain Time first pitch on AM 730 KLOE. The Royals going with Chris Bubich. Once again, he's been maybe a little bit of a downturn here over the last couple of weeks. He was really, really good. He's 6-4 now. Still a great ERA of 2.12. The record may not be great or amazing, but the ERA is still very, very good. And only 3 home runs allowed is such a great stat from Chris Bubich. But the Royals, that's a 6:40 Central Time first pitch on AM 790 KXXX against the Tampa Bay Rays, who, by the way, are 43-35, and they could be underneath some new ownership here in the coming years, it looks like. I saw an interesting stat. It was interesting. The Rockies won not last night, but 2 nights ago. The Rockies beat my Diamondbacks. And I was wondering, I wonder who's had the better record here over the last handful of games. And so I actually went back and just kind of did some quick math and added up. But don't look now. But over the last 19 games, the Rockies have a better record. The Rockies have won 9 of their last 19 games. The Royals have only won 7 of their last 19 games. So once again, it doesn't mean much. The Rockies are completely out of it. They're 18-60. But you have to realize, folks, it wasn't that long ago that they were in single-digit wins. It really wasn't that long ago. They have totally found a way. Remember, the mark to get to, I think, is, what was it, like, you want to getting to that 40-win mark before the midway point of the season. We're getting closer to the midway point of the season, and they're a couple wins shy of it. So, barring just an absolute meltdown, I think the Rockies are going to avoid being possibly the worst team we've ever seen in the modern era of baseball. But we will still see. 18-60 is still an embarrassing record. And more than likely, they're probably going to drop 3 games in this series here to LA. I think it's a 3-game set, is it? Yeah, 3-game series here to the Dodgers, more than likely. One would think. And then the Royals, like I said, hovering around that 500. That's the interesting thing. You talk about, buyers and sellers and stuff of that sort. And of course, most of it has to do with the fact where your players are under contract. But the Royals right now, they're, how far are they? I was going to actually look at this. I haven't looked at the standings for a while when it comes to the wild card. Where's Kansas City on that? They're 2.5 games back in the American League wild card at this point in time. So not out of it, but still got some work to do. But yeah, like I said, I thought that was interesting that the Rockies have a better stat over the last 19 games than the Royals do, at least at this point in time. Okay, let's get to the walk-off.
And back lifts his ball deep to right. How about a walk-off gray? Thomas to the 10. Difference going on in New England. They win it on the first play of overtime. Mahomes flings it. It's there. Hardman. Jackpot. Kansas City.
In Major League Baseball, everyone loves to talk about Shohei, and understandably so. He does unbelievable things, it seems like, almost every night. Shohei, Juan Soto, whoever, Ellie De La Cruz, those are the guys that people want to talk about. But there's a guy that people don't talk about that needs a little bit more love, and that would be the power-hitting catcher for the Mariners, Cal Big Dumper Raleigh. That's right, nicknamed the Big Dumper, is just absolutely on a tear. 32nd home run in their 11-2 win over the Twins last night. This guy he had an unbelievable week last week. 417, 5 homers, and 12 RBIs in 6 games. In his last 30 games, Raleigh's hitting .331, 17 dingers, 36 RBIs. He's got 68 runs batted in. He's hitting .278 on the season. He's 28 years old. He just signed a $105 million 6-year contract with Seattle in the spring. He needs 3 more homers to match Ken Griffey Jr. for the most before an all-star break in Mariners history. These are the type of guys that you don't hear about. They don't talk about because they play on the West Coast. Most people like myself are asleep by the time Cal Raleigh's actually going to work. So we don't hear about him. But this has been a great story. A switch-hitting catcher who's just absolutely hitting unbelievable numbers. He's on pace right now, what is he on pace for? 66, 67 home runs on pace for it right now. I don't know if he'll probably cool off. We'll see, but it's still fun to see. And first of all, how could you not love a guy who's got the nickname the Big Dumper? That's awesome. All right, that'll do it for the program today. Thanks again to Cole Carmody for hopping on the program and working with us today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Eric Sorensen's going to join the show tomorrow to recap the Men's College World Series and LSU capturing another national championship. We'll have him on tomorrow. Hope you'll join us then. It's been the Morning Blitz. Have a great Tuesday.
Classic rock plays here. This is Rocket 102.5.